In the remote past, our ancestors lived in an era that we today would describe as a Stone Age. They had not yet discovered the power of farming or domesticated animals, but they were starting to build rudimentary tools out of stones. It was during this time that something truly terrible happened. A supervolcano erupted, spewing ash and smoke for several days, covering Europe and parts of Asia in ash. So much ash fell from the sky that it blocked out the sun, and after a few weeks people started to die of starvation. This was one of the worst natural disasters in human history. But what if it had been even worse? What if the disaster had hit at a time when humans had developed into a modern civilization? What if the disaster had hit us today? In this video, we are going to look at one of the most terrifying things that could happen to the Earth and by extension humanity, a supervolcano eruption. If such an event were to occur today, it is very likely that it would be the end of our civilization as we know it. In fact, scientists believe that there have only been 3 super eruptions in the last 2.5 million years, and 2 of them have happened within the last 12,000 years. One of them was the Lake Taupo eruption in New Zealand, which occurred about 26.5 thousand years ago with an estimated volcanic explosivity index, or VEI, of 7. The other was the Yellowstone Supereruption, which took place around 640,000 years ago with a VEI of 8. Both of these eruptions covered huge areas of North America and large parts of the Pacific Ocean in ash. The youngest supereruption was the Novarupta eruption in Alaska in 1912 with a VEI of 6. It may come as no surprise that such events can have devastating effects on the environment and on human civilization. So imagine if such an event were to occur today. For the sake of this video, let's imagine that there is a massive supervolcano hidden beneath Yellowstone National Park that suddenly comes to life and causes the biggest eruption in history. We will look at how this would affect us on a global scale and also on the scale of the entire planet. Yellowstone National Park is located in the northwest corner of the United States. It encompasses parts of 3 states, Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho. The park has been famous since its creation in 1872 for its beauty. With over 300 species of mammals, 3,000 species of plants, 220 species of birds, and 16 species of fish, it is home to many species of animals and plants, including bison, wolves, grizzly bears, elk, and coyotes. It also contains the largest concentration of geysers in the world, more than half of all known active geysers. One of the most famous is Old Faithful, which erupts every 90 minutes. The park is also home to the world's first national park system, and has inspired many generations of conservationists. Today, it is protected as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. However, under the surface of this beautiful landscape lies a monster that could destroy everything in its path. Beneath the Yellowstone Caldera is a magma chamber over 40 miles wide. When it erupts, it will unleash molten rock, ash, and gases high into the atmosphere. It is believed that the eruption column will reach up to 30 miles into the sky. Molten rock and hot ash will flow outwards at speeds of up to 60 miles per hour. Pyroclastic flows will race down the valleys surrounding the caldera. Areas close to the volcano will be incinerated while areas further away will be buried in ash. If this happens today, the damage would be enormous. The immediate area surrounding the park would be completely destroyed. All life within hundreds of miles would be wiped out. Within a few hours, the entire western United States would be plunged into darkness as ash and dust blocked out the sun. Strong winds would carry fine ash particles around the entire planet. These particles would reflect sunlight back into space and cause global temperatures to plummet by an average of 1 to 3 degrees Celsius. Plants would wither and die, crops would fail, and food shortages would quickly lead to famine. But the damage wouldn't stop there. Ash and soot would darken the air and water in the upper atmosphere. Global temperatures would fall as much as 18 degrees Celsius below normal. The amount of sunlight reaching the Earth's surface would be reduced by up to 90%. In other words, it would become night all over the planet. In addition, acid rain would begin to fall around the world. Acid rain is caused by the reaction between water and pollutants in the atmosphere. The pollutants can then dissolve in rainwater and fall back to Earth as acid rain. The acid rain would kill plants and animals, pollute waterways and damage buildings and infrastructure. And if this wasn't enough, global wildfires would rage out of control. Hot embers from the initial explosion would ignite forests around the world. High winds would spread the fire rapidly and extinguish it. Only when all of the fuel is used up, the fires would eventually die out, but in their wake, they would leave behind a devastated landscape. So how long would it take for life to return to normal? Unfortunately, it would take a long time. The Yellowstone Supervolcano has an enormous magma chamber that could take decades or even centuries to empty. Each year it releases about 25,000 cubic kilometers of magma. At that rate, it would take 1,000 years to release all the magma in the magma chamber. However, the eruption column could go as high as 30 miles into the sky, releasing about 1,000 cubic kilometers of magma per year. At that rate, it would take 25,000 years to release all the magma in the magma chamber. But what if the eruption were even worse than scientists expect? What if the Yellowstone supervolcano were to erupt with the force of the Toba supereruption? The Toba supereruption occurred in Indonesia about 74,000 years ago. It is considered to be the largest volcanic eruption in the past 2.5 million years. At the time, the Earth was in an ice age, and the eruption is believed to have triggered a period of intense cold. Some scientists even believe that it may have nearly wiped out humanity from the face of the Earth. If the Toba supereruption were to occur today, the damage would be catastrophic. The entire western United States would be destroyed in an instant. Ash and dust would cover the entire planet, blocking out the sun. Global temperatures would plummet and crops would fail. Food shortages and famine would quickly follow. Global wildfires would rage out of control. Hot embers from the initial explosion would ignite forests around the world. High winds would spread the fire rapidly. Only when all of the fuel is used up would the fires eventually die out, leaving behind a devastated landscape. It would take thousands of years for life to return to normal. The amount of magma in the Yellowstone magma chamber is about 20 times larger than the amount released by the Toba supereruption. If the entire amount were released, it would be the largest volcanic eruption in history. The eruption column would reach up to 30 miles into the sky. Molten rock and hot ash would flow outwards at speeds of up to 60 miles per hour. Pyroclastic flows would race down the valleys surrounding the caldera. Areas close to the volcano would be incinerated while areas further away would be buried in ash. If this were to happen today, it would be the end of our modern civilization. Planes would be grounded, cities would be evacuated, and roads would be abandoned. People would flee from the advancing pyroclastic flows, but there would be nowhere to hide. The ash and dust would block out the sun and temperatures would plummet. Crops would fail, and food shortages would quickly lead to famine. Global wildfires would rage out of control. Hot embers from the initial explosion would ignite forests around the world. High winds would spread the fire rapidly until all of the fuel is used up. The fires would eventually die out, leaving behind a devastated landscape. It would take thousands of years for life to return to normal. Our modern society relies on technology and complex systems that would be destroyed by a supereruption. The global economy would collapse and supply chains would break down. There would be mass extinctions of plants and animals, and many species would never recover. The ash and dust would choke the air and water and poison the soil. Even the most remote regions of the planet would be affected. A super eruption at Yellowstone would be the ultimate test of human resilience. We would need to rebuild our societies and economies from scratch. But we have survived worse before. After the asteroid impact that killed off the dinosaurs, life on Earth began to recover. Mammals began to diversify and eventually gave rise to humans. Humans have a remarkable ability to adapt, and we have overcome many challenges in the past, but a super eruption would be unlike anything we have ever experienced. It would test our limits, and we might not survive. This is why it is so important to understand the risks of super eruptions and to prepare for the worst-case scenario. Scientists are constantly monitoring the Yellowstone supervolcano, and there are early warning signs that we can look out for. If we see any signs of an impending eruption, we need to be ready to act quickly. We don't want to wait until the last minute to evacuate or take other protective measures. A super eruption would be a devastating event, but it is something that we can prepare for. We just need to be aware of the risks and take the necessary precautions. But it is also important to remember that super eruptions are rare, and the chances of one happening anytime soon are very low. We should not let the fear of a super eruption prevent us from enjoying the beauty of our planet. In fact, we should use this fear to inspire us to protect the environment and preserve it for future generations. If we can do that, then we can ensure that our civilization will continue to thrive for thousands of years to come.